Let's access our server one today. And just so you have a visual of what we want to do. We want to create a new user, basically creating a John Doe, and the username is going to be john.doe. That's how they do the accounts here on campus. First name dot last name, like a pretty good naming scheme. Seen a lot of other people doing it. It used to be like first name, last name, or first name dot last name, all kind of combinations. Most IT looks like first name dot last name now. So it's been going on, and pass 1 2 3 4. And it's going to be the password. We also want to create a shared folder on server 3 off the E. Microsoft calls them volume. Not drives, volumes. Because they can be mounted to a folder. I explained that on Friday. You don't have to mount to a drive letter, and they're called volumes because they can span more than one disk, not just a single partition. They've got a term for those, and they can expand out on volumes. Just a wording thing. So we want to create a shared folder on server 3 off the E volume. Is that spelled right, or is that an E? That's what I was like. That looks, there we go. That feels better. We'll probably create share name public. We're going to create a share called public and just go with the default NTFS settings, but we're going to go with the best share permissions. And I'll explain that when we actually get to that point. That's what I wanted to go do today. I also want to create about 1 gigabyte of files. The public share. Test data deduplication on Friday, because it'll take roughly 3 days before it'll start data deduplicating. We won't recognize anything until Friday class. We'll create that today. That's kind of our rundown. You don't want to data deduplicate files that are being accessed within a 3-day time frame, because likely, a file that's recently put on the server is probably going to be modified. People normally don't finish their work with a file in a single day. And if it's a busy file, it's constantly changing. It's not ever going to, every time the file is changed, it's going to reset the count on that file. So if the data is deduplicated and then changes are made, it can slow down access and saves and stuff to that file because it's got to split it back out and reduplicate it. And that's the default, is 3 days. You might set it to like 7 days to lower the load on your server from data deduplication. But the default's 3, and we're going to leave it at that. And
So we usually have it as 3.
yes,
We don't know if it's more than 2 days.
yep. And that's why the default is 3, or to catch the weekend people. Okay, let's first create a user account. Where do you think we would go to create a user account on server 1? Correct. So Active Directory users and computers needs to be launched. Where do we create users at? No.
Oh, we can't use those folders.
There you go. I was waiting. Like, does somebody remember? Come on, somebody remember. The folders that don't have the extra symbol on them. I mean, we could create it in users, but we can't push any policies. Users are normally bad. They're normally your single biggest threat for security because they make mistakes. So you need to strain them down and put policies on them. So we need another organizational unit.
Why you gotta do that? You gotta get into the groove and do it organizational.
I'm just using their words. So we already have users. Oops. No. Somebody will come in and see that. I was going like, yes, and then no, let's not do that. They've even had a, master and slave drives and stuff. They've had a push to remove that as terminology being used. Like, what in the world?
How it works is. There's this picture of the little kid. The one's black and one's white, and they both shaved their head. And the teacher took a picture because they did it so the teacher won't be able to tell them apart. And then she posted on Twitter. And now on Twitter, they're freaking out because the white kid's throwing black culture to black kids.
That's some dumb stuff.
Yeah. All right. They love being angry.
I don't want to name them that. I want to name them something like lumps. Lumps on a log. I was saying some other things like marketing or sales, but I've got some practice for the skills, and I've also got, we're going to be using these for the midterm skills. So I don't want to use anything that I know is going to be used in those practice and on the actual skills, that you don't have stuff in the way. So lumps will work. We'll create a new user in here. How do you think we'll create a new user? Then what? Then what? User. Cool. Yep. We also have in the button bar, a single bust up there is a new user. The double bust are a group account. We're just going to worry with the user. So it was John, right? Yeah, John. His last name was Doe. And his login name, John.Doe. on the password in a production environment, this is actually what you would want to have with the checkboxes selected. Because what does this do? Why is this the default?
Well, you can change it and then sign in.
Right, so you're looking at cybersecurity stuff. Yes, the administrator should never know the user's password. You should never ask the user for their password. Sure, your bank and other people have always sent those security warnings to you. Nobody at the bank's going to ask you for your password. Unless you call them up. Then they'll ask for like your birthday and social security number and mother's maiden name. But you called them, so you know who you're calling. It's different if, even if it comes up and has the caller ID, things people still can spoof that stuff.
Well, yeah, if they do something, what are they gonna do? There's no like transfer funds or transfer.
They can take out loans and stuff in your name if they can get enough information to run your credit. Oh, yeah. Read the horror stories. So I'm putting pass 1, 2, 3, 4 in here. So yeah, this would be great. However, we're in a lab environment and we want to be able to log into these users, and you don't really want to change the password after you just set it for yourself. So you can uncheck and probably check the next two options. This would only be for lab use, or if you're setting up a service account for, say, a backup program. Any type of application has to run as some type of user. So if you've got a program that automates things in the background, it has to log into the account, you'd have to create an account for them. Sometimes the installer does it for you. You have to modify that account and check these two checkboxes. Otherwise, next time your password expiration hits on the user, your application won't be able to run the day after that, and it'll stop working. You may not catch it for months. Pretty bad if it's a backup program, and then you need to restore in a few months because something went down and it's no longer backing up. Not like I've run into weird stuff like that before. So I never make mistakes.
Speaking of banking cybersecurity, I'm talking to SBS Cyber, the banking cybersecurity company, and they want to do, they're trying to do internships for you and more cybersecurity.
Cool. We have a user created. Sweet. I guess we should test them out. Can we log into our client machine? We created something. Let's test out. Why is my client machine off? I did? Why did I tell y'all to do that? That's not smart of me. No, that was perfectly legit. I never make mistakes. Okay. John Doe. Notice when I typed in John Doe, I didn't have to put @contoso.com. And it didn't switch to wanting to log into the local PC. It went ahead and logged into Contoso.
Mine says to sign in remotely, you need the right to sign in.
Okay. In your button bar, if you can't log into remote desktop services, click the little last icon. If you hover over it, it'll say basic session. Go and click on that. It'll switch it to basic session and let you log in. The button bar, the last icon up there, mouse over it, it'll say basic session. Click it. And it'll let you log in. Enhanced session is logging in through a remote desktop protocol, which allows greater access to like copying files and stuff back and forth than basic session. But the remote desktop protocol is also locked out to only administrators can use it. And you're logging in as John Doe, which is just a lump on the log somewhere. He doesn't have rights to remote desktop anywhere unless we give him rights. And we will do that with the group policy at some point in time. We'll push that policy to the machine and you'll be able to log in with that. But for now, just logging in as regular. If I open up a file explorer window, I don't think my search works. It doesn't. So probably something to do with it not being activated. File system and file explorer. You could pin it to the taskbar for John Doe if you want to.
So when he signed in to his computer, he could only see files that he saved, right?
Yeah, so looking here on C drive, users, he's got John Doe, but say administrator, that I can't see anything under administrator. I can't see anything. So there's two other accounts. You can look at your, if you look at your computer, your number 11. So yeah, if you look at computer users here, all these other people are on your computer, and you'll only be able to go into your, although I'm admin, so I can jump, the administrator can sometimes jump in. The administrator can always take control of a folder and overwrite the permissions. They're locked out at any time too.
So do we set that up, or is that just automatically?
Some of it's automatic. Yeah.
I was gonna say, 'cause I remember setting up the only users can see their files.
Yep, that's automatic. So Whack server 3 shows us nothing. Right? Server 3 is empty. If I try to access $, that's a hidden share, pop up and say access denied. So I want to go ahead and just close that out. You can, if you've seen how I access Keaton's computer, -11 $C, I could see his C drive because I've got administrative rights to his machine. I'll set that up with group policy where the faculty and even you as students, you all have administrative rights, so you probably can click into other people's folders. So nothing secret around here. Okay. We need access a public folder on server 3, but we've not created it yet. All we've done is created this user. We've not created a share folder on server 3. That's why it's blank right now. We need to create the share folder, leaving the default permissions and setting up best share permissions. Public will appear here and we'll be able to access it. We'll be able to put files in there as John Doe. Let's go to server 2, 1. Blah. My brain will say the right thing in a second. Server 1. I could do it from server 2 because it's got server manager, but I'm sticking with server 1. I don't think I've added server 3 into the server manager on server 2. So, server 2's got a GUI. I could add the same thing. It's a domain controller, just like server 1 is. I just have to add the server into there. But
so can you add the GUI in server 3 if you want to?
No.
No.
It's not capable on anything 2016 and above. I'm not checked out 2022 server. I think the original release of 2012 server, 2012, 2012 R2, you could go back and forth between graphics. I think it may have been 2012 R2. You go from graphics to non-graphical, but that was they only had one version that did that. I guess there's too many prerequisites and too many hooks that they cause problems and they stopped it. Okay, so file and storage services. Click on shares. We'll have two servers that have shares up there, NetLogon and sysfile. Those are only found on domain controllers, unless somebody manually created a folder called NetLogon or sysfile and tried to share it out on a non-domain controller. That's if you're ever trying to figure out what are domain controllers on the network, really easy. If you see those two folders shared on a single machine, it's running Active Directory domain services. That, and you look at computer management, notice the local users and groups aren't there. So several things you can spot and realize if you've gotten on a domain controller or not. So Keaton's all into cybersecurity. You'll probably do maybe some ethical hacking classes and stuff. You get into a system, some things you look at, like, you know, I've got into this Windows machine. What is here on the Windows machine? You can figure out what you're into. Let's create a new share. There's a task up here and a new share. There used to be an old school way of sharing stuff out where you just went to the File Explorer on a server. So you're on the 2003 server. You open up File Explorer and you right click, create a new folder, and then you right click on the folder, go to properties and go to NTFS, set up the permissions tab, go to sharing tab, type in a share name, set up permissions there. It used to be the old way to do it, but since about 2003 R2, which has been a long time ago, using a file share wizard has been the preferred method. And they've added some things that you can't do through legacy sharing. And any Microsoft server out there today, you want to use Server Manager and this wizard to create shares. You've got access to more features than through File Explorer. Normally, you just want to do a quick share at the top. It's pretty odd you'd want to do any other shares, application shares, or if you're wanting to run virtual machines, basically. NFS is Unix, and the Unix subsystem under Windows, I've never seen it be able to keep NFS running steady for more than about 1 or 2 weeks before the service locks up. And then it has to be restarted where you can, and then anything that's connected to it, especially if it's doing write operations, it would get corrupted. So I would advise never to use NFS on Windows. If you're going to use that, which it's very popular on Unix and cloud computing platform VMware, that you share that off of a Linux or a Unix machine. Even a Mac OS X would probably, it's running a Unix core, so it would probably have a more stable NFS share.
So how do you have, if they have a Unix and you're using VMware and you're using like Linux systems, like how is that able to control like Windows computers, like for large inside? So like, you see what I'm saying? If we're going through Windows and controlling other Windows computers, how can you have a totally different operation system to be able to maintain and control and set boundaries for
Yeah, well, most things are, like I said, you're running Active Directory to push the policies for the Windows stuff, and then whatever other third party you're running, like Linux. Red Hat has a web interface that you can actually go into and hook all of your servers into and see them in a web interface on their portal. You pay through their subscription, so you can, and you're writing your own scripts. It's controlled a little bit different. It's a different system than on Windows. So.
Windows would even allow that.
I mean, it's nothing really to do with Windows. It's through Red Hat.
Yeah.
So. All right, let's go next on Quick Share. Click on Server 3. Click on eDrive. So again, this is just make sure it's running and then the refresh. You might try to restart server 3. Go into a desk config and tell it to restart. And then refresh. So again, we're picking server 3, and this is best practice. We're not picking server 1 or 2 because you don't do anything on the domain controller, any extra. It's already doing the Active Directory and all the tool sets for it. That's why I have server 3, a member server. And then the second best practice, so since we are here on a member server, it's not a domain controller. We're picking E drive. We're leaving C just for the operating system. Mostly because users they'll do something bad. They'll fill the drive up. And you don't want your operating system drive to get filled up and lock the server. You don't have a server 3. Do you have a server 3 under all servers? What? Yes. It says yours is having some issues. Let's check a few things out. So your firewall policy. How did your firewall policy? Seems like there's something off with the firewall. Vendor.
Oh, cool.
Zoom this in. Windows management, that's all. So I think yours is going to be same thing. Connecting to it. And restarting it with sconfig. So when all else fails, you restart. Okay, so as that pops up, see, that's client. Yep. Number one in troubleshooting, restart first. Now you have server 3 and E drive. Cool. Anybody else having that issue? Everybody's having an issue, just go to server 3 and restart. Did you
But
miss,
it is set up.
you miss Friday?
It's set up. I went to check to make sure that it's set up.
What, E drive?
And when I go to work folders and pool and
Yeah. Virtual disk 0 should be formatted. You can rename the administrator account. Not recommended. But you can. Yeah, go to your all servers, or no, go to file and storage services and click on disk up there.
Oh, you want me to do
Yeah. So you have this that's online. Okay, so go to volumes. Scroll down to the bottom. Click the refresh button. Don't think you formatted. Go back to disk. Right click that VO1 there. And new volume. No, don't do that. Go to storage pool. And maximize that server manager window. Yeah, so then at the V01, right click, go to it's highlighted, go to task. No. I guess just right click new volume. Yep, next to that. That's right, you didn't set data deduplication. Now you've got it. And this next. And next.
Okay.
And we label it data. That's what it was. We ran out of time. Yeah, and now you enable data deduplication, general purpose file server, set a schedule, and hit the top checkbox up here. Yep, enable throughput optimization and hit OK. Now you can create it. Now you'll be able to create a share. I remember now you canceled and went and installed the service role and I think went to lunch.
Yeah, I have all the firewalls set up.
Yeah.
And do that. So I did it.
Okay, so now you can close that out. It's all done. Yep, shares, new task, share. Okay, everybody here? Cool, let's move on. Now we can create the share name. Was it public? Is that what I said? Look at my notes. Yes. Public is what I made up. Oh, it's just a good generic name, a public folder. Next, I don't like the defaults on this one. I like to move this checkbox down. We allow caching of a share. I only like to do that if the folder is for one single person. And most of the shares I'm creating are typically for multiple people to access and work on. I mean, there are some that you create just for single people. In that case, you can allow caching, but only if it's for one person. You don't want them to be able to cache stuff, take their laptop to Fort Lauderdale, do a bunch of work on vacation for some reason instead of being on vacation, then come back, plug it back in, and it upload all of their changes to the share when other people have already made changes to the files and their changes overwrite and they didn't see it. And that's why I don't like that middle option. But I'd always, the bottom, cybersecurity. It's another reason we use this wizard instead of legacy file sharing, because this is not clicked on. Encrypt data access. So those files are being transmitted from the server to the client or vice versa. And the stream is encrypted. What does that do with cybersecurity? Yeah, be the obvious choice. It's It's going to prevent any type of malicious code being injected. So if somebody's monitoring the packets and they're grabbing the frames off the network, if it's not encrypted, they could change the data inside of that. They could inject malicious code. That's the reason for encryption.
I don't know if this is how this would work, but say you had encrypted data and this might injected, let's say a virus code.
It won't decrypt.
Right, and then it decrypted, wouldn't that change up how the code for the virus is going to do, like completely?
Yeah, just come up with garbage and it'll be
That's what I'm saying.
dumped.
That's how encryption works.
Right.
Like switching the code, doesn't, yeah.
Right. It would not be, it couldn't decrypt. The key would end up with garbage and it'd ask for to resend the frame or resend the file. So, yeah. The encryption's got a lot of good benefits with it. So next, one thing I always like to change. I don't know why it's not the default. But what they have default is not good. Just always move that checkbox down for cybersecurity purposes. The permissions page here. So I'm going to customize permission. I'm going to leave the file system permission alone. That is the NTFS permission. There are some other formats that Microsoft has, REFS, I think that's the new one, REFS. Have messed with it a whole lot. It's kind of a clone of, you took operating systems, you remember the zettabyte file system, the ZFS? Microsoft has a file system really similar to that for ginormous storage. And but yeah, default NTFS permissions, that's the permissions tab. It's actually recorded on the platter, the SSD or whatever, actual physical device, those permissions. And share permissions are recorded into the file server share, the process that's sharing this out. And these are only accessed if you're coming from the network. When you think of share permissions, kind of like the parking lot to a business. You don't want to lock the parking lot down. So you can make mistakes. If you try to lock your parking lot down, then legitimate customers can't get in the door. So I normally use like the comedy clubs and stuff that, you can get in, you're 18, but you can't drink. If you're 21 or over, they stamp your hand and you can drink. But both of you can pull in and park in the parking lot. 18-year-olds and then 21-year-olds have greater access once they get inside. But as far as getting into the parking lot, getting into the door, you don't have anything really blocking until you get to that bouncer right at the door when they're checking your ID. So the parking lot and the first entranceway is share permissions. Permissions over here is that bouncer at the door that's looking at your actual ID and either going to let you access, they go into the comedy club, and either you can watch the show or you get a stamp and you can watch the show and drink alcoholic beverages. So that's like permission tab. And this is getting up to the bouncer. So you don't want to block stuff on share. And same thing with sharing stuff out. If you try to limit and do any other share than what I'm going to show you, you're probably going to have problems down the road. Either quickly or within a few months, you're going to run into problems. People won't have the right rights to do stuff. Well, share is the first. So it is the parking lot. You come in, you can see that outside the building. It's this right here is internal. So
you set something else. You set permission here, 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 here. You want to go here, 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 here.
well, permissions are, the share is what you hit first, so they're open. And then you get funneled in tighter as you get,
So I feel like you just want to start with the outside.
Yeah, that share.
So it should be the first option, it should be permission.
Oh, you're talking about the placement of these
Yeah.
tabs?
Yeah.
Okay, you're just the visual. Okay, whatever. Now I see what you're like.
So they have it backwards.
It's not even in alphabetical order. Well, they may have just placed these two in alphabetical order, and then they placed these two in alphabetical order. I think that's what it was. These two are placed in alphabetical order because they're dealing with permissions, and these two are something else, and they're in alphabetical order. So P and S, and then A and E.
I can't say, you know how much time they have to put into this? How much like little areas you get into it?
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of dollars.
Okay. You might even want to get your phone out and take a picture of this. So the best share permissions, 99.9% of the time. Take a picture. So let's set it. You can take a picture of your screen, you don't have to worry about my screen. It'll probably be better doing your screen. So let's set your permissions first. So click on everyone and we need to hit edit. Everyone should have full control removed. Full control allows you to change permissions on the file that you own. Removing full control stops you from being able to change the permissions on a file that you created. It's weird. You think change would let you change the file contents. And full control lets you change the permissions tab on a file. So unclicking full control for everyone blocks the permission tab from your regular users. Now, you're an administrator, you need to control everything. So you need to add yourself in. So click add. And a principal is a user account, a group, or a special identity. So click select principal. We want to add an administrators group because there's likely more than one administrator that's going to be working at a company. And the administrators group, this administrators group can only be seen on servers 1 and server 2. It can't be seen from server 3. Server 3 actually has its own local users and groups with a local administrators group inside of it. Let me show you that I can show you that without still going there. So on server 3, server 3 has an administrators group on it. And the administrators group includes domain admins in Contoso.
I thought we wanted to shut down all local administrators, just use.
That's on Windows 10. This is a server.
Just
Yeah. And you can't shut down groups. Groups are there to give access to things. And but server 3 does have that. We could disable that if we wanted to. That might be something you would do, the local administrator group on server 3. But now this is a group. It's not, you can't log in as a group or anything. You have to log in as one of these people, domain administrator. So anybody that you add to the company inside Contoso and add them to domain admins, that's the group you'd add to. You'd give them administrative rights to wherever domain admins had rights to. And this is automatically, we go look at our client 1, you'll see domain admins is in the administrators group on our client 1. When you join a domain, that's what happens. Domain admins, it's part of the join process. You click the little radio button, type Contoso, and you type administrator and password. Also put domain admins into the administrators group on every single machine that joins the domain. That's pretty neat. On this share, we got to find that administrators group And we're looking in our domain, but it's not in our domain, it's on server 3. This trips up people a lot. So we have to change the location to server 3. Now I put administrators, plural. You have to put that S on the end of it. Hit check name, it'll underline it for you. It'll let you know you spelled it right. And if it can't find it, then you retype it until you spell it right and it underlines it. So a local administrator accounts on server 3 and a domain administrator account have access to this share. And a lot of companies will, at least on their servers, their local administrator account will sometimes leave that enabled and have a long password on it. In case troubleshooting, you can't get onto the domain, you can still log on to a local admin. It's all based on policy and stuff, how you want to set that up. Click OK. Full control, you're an administrator. Click OK. That's what you should take a picture of on your screen. And I'll push this and I'll try to trick you later on just to see if you'll remember. It's not really a trick. You get memos and stuff from IT or non-technical people on what needs to be set up on permissions, and they can trip you up, and you'll set. A lot of students try to set the share permissions instead of the permissions tab. So almost no matter what your boss tells you, that's always what's going to be on share. Any other type of limiting down will be on the permissions tab. We're not going to do that today. Now you don't have permission to change the paint stripes on the parking lot. The cops will come get you.
Yeah, but like you think, so the bouncer.
But the administrator can.
But you think administrators is 21, everyone else is 18. The bouncer did choose the 21 in the show.
Now the administrator is the boss. Bouncer somebody. Just click OK. And then next and create. Take a 10-minute break. We'll watch some chickens while we're at a break. So now at the point of accessing and putting 1 gig of data onto server 3. I want to access our share from John Doe. Let's go see. Let's go to our client. I don't think I've ever done this in the past. Let's go John Doe and see what's up. So I'm on client 1. I've still got my File Explorer window open, and my universal refresh key is F5. So if I click into this empty folder and hit F5, it'll refresh. So key combination you should probably just know. How I Control C and Control V for copy and paste. Control X for cuts. It's not as important as Control C, Control V, but F5 is one of those universal key combinations. Pipes, T connector. Like a PVC and a T connector. So, yeah. They wanted you to be able to see it, so they brought the color out different. Let's go and access public. Let's go and create a file. New text document.
When we click it, down the pipe connects to the folder.
I'm going to name it doc1. And I want to create a file about 100 meg in size. I'm going to open it up with Notepad. I'll type that in. I'm going to hit enter.
That's only about 2 by
I'm going to save this file. And it says it's 1K, but it's probably not even 1K really. It's 55 bytes. So I need to type a whole lot of times. So I'm going to hit Control A and Control. That's another key combination. Control A for select all. What are these key combinations we've talked about? I'm going to open up another notepad. So I'm going to use that in my next class too. Open up another notepad window. Notepad. So we did F5. Refresh. Control C. Copy. It's also cancel sometimes the command line.
All right.
So Control C is copy or cancel. Paste. So those key combinations are some definitely ones you want to always remember. So I did a Control A, Control C, copy that, and then I'm going to do Control V, and I'm going to hold down my Control V for, I don't know, a while till I get like, well, so I'll go up to like 200 lines here, and I'll do a Control A, Control C, and Control V. So now I'm heading up to I'll go up to 100,000 lines and see what I get. So there, I got 100,000 lines roughly. I'm going to save it and see what my size becomes. So I've got 5 meg. So Control A and Control C. If I paste it once, that's 5 meg, 10 meg, 15, 20. And then I can do a Control A to select 20 meg, Control C. And if I paste that 5 times, so Control V 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, should estimate around 100 meg. There we go. Got 105 meg.
Oh, I want to say, I'm at a million.
That's a gig. So you're good. You got 1 gig. It'll show in the bottom.
Yeah, that's gross line.
I
Yeah, I
have-
did. Yeah, 1.01. Oh, I can't open it. 2 weeks for notepad.
Yeah, so you're okay. That's how much we needed. You reached the goal. What I was going to do, I was going to Control C and Control V this file 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think actually would get 1.02 gig because got to count the original file there. So I put it 1 gig. I got 1.02 gig. And that's what I was wanting to end up with. Whether 10 files or 1 file, I wanted a gigabyte of stuff into this folder. The data deduplication is going to run through and look at every 4 kilobyte block of code and look at eliminating if it finds duplicate 4 kilobyte blocks of code.
So it's gonna cut this down to like 1 kilobyte.
So we should have some substantial savings on here. So that was our end goal, was to have a gig on there. We have a 10 gig limit, and I wanted some space left over to put Chrome and some other things on here to carry on. But this was my main goal today, is just to get these files out there. We've seen how to share a folder. We at least did it once. We created a user account. I didn't learn anything big, but we did see it wasn't too hard to create a user account and create a share. So I'm going to close all of client 1 out. And
Does not respond.
it'll respond after a while, maybe. You just may have to give it some time. So that's kind of odd. Like I said, I'm gonna go 100,000 lines, see what size, and go from there. Start working at 5 meg. And
About like 600,000.
is that all? You got 600 meg? You copy and paste it, and I'd have 1.2 gig. I'd have 2 files. That'd be perfect. Let's check on server manager. Let's go and go to volumes. And is it volumes that I'm wanting to check on.
Well,
Yeah. So I refreshed my server manager page. And what I want to do, I'm going to take a snippet. I'm going to use my snipping tool. And I'm going to go ahead and snip this section right here. I've scrolled down so that I can see E drive. Yeah, on my server 1. So I'm going to save this inside of server 1. Yeah, the server 3 V4. I may snip it after, but so I can see that there's only 7.31 gig. There's a lot of overhead. There's something called metadata, and there's a database already on E drive. So there's probably 400 meg or something like that. That's part of the NTFS file system that's not going to data deduplicate. So as I've refreshed this, you know, I'm looking at, we put a gig on there, so that would have been 8.31 gig roughly. So we're looking at around 600 meg or so as part of the NTFS file system itself. So we'll see what our data duplication rate, what type of savings it's going to be. And it should show us out to the side. Right now it's 0 bytes because all those files are brand new, and it's not going to work on them until it determines they're untouched for 3 days.
But even though that my all that text is one text file, it'll still go in that text file and delete all
It doesn't look at files. They used to have data deduplication that looked at files and would eliminate the files and stuff. That's good. And in Linux, you symbolic links and hard linking. You remember that? Out of chapter 4 or 5 in the Linux class, that was file level data deduplication, but they moved beyond that now. And this storage subsystem doesn't look at files. It just looks at all the page of information, which is 4 kilobytes, 4,096 bytes. You multiply that by 8, you get how many bits that is, which is 24,000, 32,000 bits, individual zeros and ones. So looks at all of those and takes them at that chunk at a time, and like those an MD5 sum them all these 4K chunks all the way through. It take a lot of processing power, and then it compares. And even those that are the same, they're like, hey, these two 4K chunks are the same. We'll delete one of them and make a pointer that this 4K chunk is now going to this sector on the drive. So it does not look at the file. It only looks at the actual zeros and ones on the platter.
I mean, how much in a real world scenario does you fish today?
30 to 50% is normal. So I've got data deduplication set up on a production server. I think I've got it set on that one. And this one, we've got over a terabyte of junk on a file server share. It depends on, email servers, you get a lot of savings on an email server. They deduplicate the mailbox server in an email system. Of course, nowadays people are just using, Microsoft's doing it in the cloud, so they're doing it in the cloud automatically, but you're not really doing your own. This is server 2012 R2. I do have not really, that's not a start menu. Not a start menu. So 2012 R2, antiquated piece of junk is, I need to upgrade it at some point in time, but I do have Server Manager. And you'll notice Server Manager pop up and it'll look just like Server Manager. Also right clicking on the start menu. I still have almost all the same kind of stuff, my command prompts instead of PowerShell.
When was the Sim do?
2015, I think.
I mean, it's kind of.
I think it's right around 2015. It's Windows 8 interface. Well, this is Windows 8.1 interface.
I don't remember.
So as this thing loads up, I'll show you the data deduplication service. I'm pretty sure it's running on this one. Look at the volumes. We've got a 2 terabyte, maybe. What's my volume size? I've got 2.5 terabyte volume, and I'm a 32% savings on this one. So that's 603 gig that has been freed up by eliminating duplicate data. That's a pretty good 600 gigs, pretty good chunk. Your drives that you buy for your laptop and for your home computers are pretty cheap. They're really cheap. They're pennies a gigabyte. Sometimes maybe even a fraction of a penny a gigabyte. Server storage is a little bit different because you're normally buying drives that have a 5-year warranty for running 24/7 instead of a 3 or 5 year warranty for running 4 to 8 hours a day. So they're a lot more expensive, a lot better bearings and motors and stuff in there. We'll use like titanium or different stuff that lasts longer.
Wouldn't it be smarter to have an SSD, straight solid state server?
And SSD has different quality too. So the ones you buy for your desktop, the sectors can only be written to so many times where they wear out. And they're like quad level, I think, right now. So you can write 4 bits per cell, but you can only write to them a few times where that cell burns out. Servers that want speed and ability, especially if there's lots of writes to them. It depends on what data and what the server is going to be. Just static files, you can buy cheaper SSDs, but you're looking at single bit cells that are really, really, really fast and also can be written to hundreds of thousands of times. you're looking at, 5 and 6 figures for those SSDs. Really expensive per gigabyte. So saving 600 gig on a server is typically, that's a lot of money that you saved that you can now allocate to something else.
Everything's a little stick.
My laptop.
That's all I have in my computer. Makes it easier.
Yeah, so that 2012 server, I really just want to put a 2016 disk and tell it to update, or 2019 and tell it to upgrade, but no, not going to do that. I'm going to deploy out a brand new, probably a core only. Probably not going to run it with a graphical interface anymore. And then have to migrate 1.2 terabytes of data and stuff over.
I didn't mind it being long.
I'll be using Server Manager. I mean, here's a Windows 10 machine. Here's a Windows 10 machine that under the start menu, I've got administrative tools and I've got Active Directory. I've got Server Manager right here on Windows 10. You go to the cog wheel because you don't believe me. I have to show you because you don't believe me. Windows 10 right there, Windows 10 Enterprise. So on Windows 10, I've got Server Manager. Do I have the? I don't have the server added in here, but I've got Active Directory, so I can take care of this domain. I've got like DNS server, so the DNS server that's running, I can control all the, see all the stuff. The DHCP server, like I said, you're not going to be doing this on your server. That's why you install servers without a graphical interface, because you install these tools on your 10 machine.
So your remote machine that you always manage your servers from would have a unit, but then your main server operating system would just be the command prompt?
Yep. And this server that I'm showing you, that these tools are communicating with, is command prompt only.
That's what I'm saying. Pretty cool.
So that's, come on, load up. That server with all the Active Directory, the DNS, the DHCP, it shouldn't all be running on the same one, but it's a lab. And I didn't want to follow best practices on that one. Packed everything on one. It's not connected to the internet directly. So that's this one right here. It's a 2016 server, but
See, now that makes more sense why you would run command prompts on the other server. You didn't tell us that first, and you just run it off one computer, like run your GUIs off your like Windows 10 computer, but only have command prompts on your actual server, so the workload is lower than what the with
so it's just a command prompt only. And I go here to run sconfig, but don't ever log into it. It just sits there and runs at a black screen. So yeah, where's that server manager? The server manager, add server. Okay, CS. Wait, no, that's not what it is. It is ESX. That one doesn't exist anymore. Surprised that one's still showing up. Interesting. I upgraded from 2000. I didn't just upgrade. I did the stand another domain controller right upside the 2008. Migrated all the DHCP and all the stuff over. DHCP was the main one. I had to export the configuration and import it into the new one. The other stuff like DNS, Active Directory integrated, it auto
So for managed storage servers, like, say you work for a video editing company, like they do ads and stuff like that, and they do all their video on this server, is there any reason to ever upgrade that server? To like another Windows version, another Windows server? Or would you just leave that alone for years and years and years? They don't have.
Leave it alone for over like 10 years or so.
That's what I'm saying, so.
You normally start running out of space and just need a second server, and all the new videos are somewhere else, and that was just kind of there for an archive. And sometimes those are not on Windows or on Unix, Linux.
So really, you just want to upgrade, so if you're using Windows 30, you just want to upgrade like the Active Directory and stuff like that, you want your,
Don't want to upgrade, just standard.
you know,
Yeah, it's the best is not to upgrade, transfer, install new, set all the settings and migrate the data and apps.
storage leave alone, and then make it.